Hello, everybody. It's Angelique Renee. I'm just going to give everyone a moment to hop on. Happy Saturday. I hope you're having a fabulous weekend. It is it's been quite the roller coaster ride the last couple weeks. And so for those of you joining me, I'm Angelique Renee. I'm a holistic beauty and wellness expert, women's self-care coach, and licensed esthetician. And I wanted to hop on today to talk about a couple of topics just because it's been such a roller coaster ride these last couple weeks, especially with, the moon cycles and the eclipse energy, and it's been really intense. And so fortunately today, actually probably about halfway through the day yesterday, I started to feel a shift, started to feel the energy start to lighten up, and started to feel less bogged down by the things that were troubling me and all the change that's been around me. Because, for those of us who are evolving or have been chosen for the ascension process, I don't know about you, but sometimes it just seems like when I go through these types of cycles, it is very intense and can be sometimes painful, a lot of hard lessons along the way. But today I was just spending a little time in meditation and prayer and becoming introspective. Hi, Sylvia. Good to see you. It's been a long time. So I really was becoming introspective because I really wanted to evaluate all of the things that had gone on in the last couple weeks, and wanted to kind of deconstruct it. So, being in the business of coaching women on supreme self-care, that doesn't always mean that I have it completely perfected. But what it does mean is that I've chosen to no longer live a life of chaos. And now it actually is only the occasional moment that pops up. And usually when certain situations and certain things pop up, it's shining light on an area that needs to be healed, or it's a message that's being conveyed. And sometimes, if you're like me, sometimes you can be a little stubborn about learning certain lessons, and sometimes you repeat certain patterns. Sometimes things that come, the universe comes at you with a 2x4 to smack you upside the head to make sure you're listening. So, sometimes we can let our emotions get the best of us, and sometimes when we have a heightened sensitivity to the energy and to everyone and everything that's going on around us, especially if we work with the general public and if we work with people and we work in healing and in wellness, or healthcare, we're constantly coming in contact with people. And so shielding and grounding and those types of things are so very important, just because we are always kind of picking up that spiritual dust and that energy from other people. Hello, Renee. Hi, David. So as I was getting introspective and I was really reflecting on some of the things that have transpired over the last couple of weeks, one of the things that came to me was a matter of cause and effect, right? So, I'll use myself as an example. I had a situation one day where a conversation went sideways. So when it went really sideways, right? And so I was a little blindsided and a little dazed and confused afterwards, but in looking back, in hindsight, I had to evaluate, did I use my tools? Like, what's the cause and what's the effect? And it's really a matter of taking personal responsibility for your life experience. This is something that I learned pretty early in my journey, that really kind of shifted the dynamics with my partner and my family and everything else, because you can't change the people around you. However, you can change and choose to respond rather than react. And so in looking back, I had a day where I was feeling overwhelmed, overcome with emotion, and I started communicating from that place, which was actually overwhelming to another person. And we always have to be mindful that it's a ripple effect. We don't always understand how we affect the people around us, and so that's where we have to be mindful. And so I realized now, I walked out of that house, out of the house that morning, and I didn't use my tools. I didn't spend time in prayer and meditation that morning. I didn't use my aromatherapy. I really left the house, and I had not grounded and balanced myself before leaving. And so therefore, when I went to communicate, I was communicating from that energy in that space of being totally ungrounded. So it impacted the other person, and then of course the response was not favorable either. So in looking back, there's this exchange that takes place, and so what I can look at and what I can learn from that is, okay, Angelique, did you use your tools today? And that's very much what I teach women. I teach women the tools to make sure that they can step out of the chaos and live a life of serenity. And so much of it is dependent on our own self-care. So again, it doesn't mean that I'm perfect, but it is really nice to know that I don't live a life of chaos, but when those instances come up, I can look back and say, okay, here's what I could have done differently. Because you can either, well, let me just say this. The suddenly syndrome is kind of a misnomer, or even accidents are kind of a misnomer. There's always a cause of something, and then there's an effect, kind of like the law of physics. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So, like I got in an accident several years ago. It wasn't just an accident. It was that somebody wasn't paying attention. They didn't see a red light and they ran their car into my car, so it wasn't completely like without fault, right? So, in that case, you have to determine, do I want to constantly live in a reactive state where everything is in effect, or do I want to know that if I'm grounded, present, and connected, then I can steer the ship. I can be the cause, and I can determine the effect based on my own inner being, and then even if somebody else is off balance, if they were to come to me, then choosing to respond rather than react can also, then again, I can be the cause and steer the ship without having things escalate or things kind of, get off kilter. So it's a matter of taking personal responsibility. I look back in hindsight and it's like, oh wow, I didn't realize that me being so ungrounded or emotional or not using my tools that particular day, the ripple effect that it would have. I didn't realize how potent and how strong my energy force was that particular day, and communicating from that place was overwhelming to another person. So that's why it's very important to have kind of a ritual of self-care, and just it affects your work, it affects your family, it affects your friends. So, the other thing looking back too, and sometimes messages are conveyed, and sometimes, you get these subtle kisses from the universe, and then sometimes it has to be blatantly painful, in the delivery for you to stop and take a second and really evaluate what's going on. And so, as we deconstruct things, you want to look at where your blocks are, where your blind spots are, and that's kind of how we help one another. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of coaches, guides, and mentors in my own life that, regardless of what I was going through, what blocks I had, what was going on in my life, they could lovingly point things out, give me coaching, and give me guidance in order to, help me break through those blocks, right? So, the other part that I would ask you is, are there areas in your life and where there are addictions? And so, addiction, now the addictions don't necessarily mean chemical dependency. We always think of alcoholism, we always think of drug abuse, things like that as your particular addiction. But we can be addicted to chaos, to stress, to toxic relationships, to certain patterns and cycles. Some people may play the victim. Some people may be addicted to patterns of mistreatment or, not being treated well or treated properly. And so, an addiction is when you continue to let things damage you, even though you know the destructive nature of what you're doing. And so that kind of leads me to my next point. When you see patterns pop up, patterns within your relationships, and certain things that you allow, certain accommodations that you make, certain things that you sweep under the carpet, and that, as painful as mistreatment and things like that may be, it's like maybe you let things go on longer than you should, or maybe you let things transpire that are not serving you at the greater good. So then you have to learn when a situation becomes toxic. So I'll give you an example. If you're having conversations with somebody, or you're in a relationship with somebody where conversations, no matter how many times you have a conversation and you try to clarify, you try to understand, and it just seems like you're speaking two different languages, and like with each conversation it just feels like it's deteriorating and it's not getting better. Or even if it gets to a place where it escalates or deteriorates to a point that it's just the respect has been lost, you're not speaking to one another with integrity, anything like that, you have to realize, if it seems like a situation is as if you were picking up mud and trying to strain it to get clean drinking water, then you might want to evaluate if it's time to cut ties. So if something seems like every time that you're trying to actually put something on the mend and it's not getting better and it's not improving, and it just seems like the waters just keep getting muddier, then you've got to learn to evaluate when it's time to let it go. And make sure that you're not in a place of being addicted to having that energy, that trauma, that mistreatment, those types of things, and value yourself enough to say, okay, I think we're done here. And that means friendships, work relationships, romantic relationships, whatever that may be. And so that's why it's so important when I coach women on sacred self-care. It's a multifaceted approach to where, balancing yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. There are 4 main key areas of life. And so I really help them take a look at that, help them take a look at their blind spots, their triggers, the areas in which they need to be balanced and grounded, the personal responsibility aspect where, they realize that they can steer the ship and they can actually, they actually have the power to be able to create their own life experience and change their life experience, and understanding the effect that they have on everyone and everything around them, and all the different aspects and areas of their life that can really help to nurture them to be the most balanced, grounded, present, and connected that they can possibly be. And so that's why I actually recently decided to start developing retreats to help women get out of their environment, because when you're living in a swarm of chaos, it's really hard to think straight. So sometimes you need that time out for a few days to unplug from the matrix, is what I call it, because when I was living in the matrix, carrying 2 and 3 cell phones and constantly on email and constantly traveling and trying to manage my home and deal with my partnership and all of these things, there's just so much, and sometimes you got to take a step back and say, today is the day that I'm going to make myself a priority. And sometimes you just need somebody to tell you what to do. And I'll tell you, it's just, you're your own best investment. So when you can take a step back, and I just remember when things seemed to be getting their worst in the past, I remember going to my own coach and saying, listen, I can't afford to make any mistakes. Just please tell me what to do. And, having somebody in your life that has that wisdom to be able to speak life into you on the days that you need it, to give you guidance and help you shift your perspective in order to make change for the better. I mean, it is priceless, because I'm here to tell you that living on the other side of it, even though occasionally life still throws me curveballs, but you know what? It's not a lifestyle for me anymore. I have a curveball once in a while. I navigate through it. Maybe it takes a couple of weeks, maybe it takes a couple of months, whatever, but it's not dictating my decisions. It's not dictating, my life. It's not overcome or overwhelming. I know that these little things that pop up are just a hiccup, like just a little blip on the map throughout life, because in general, like, my life is just so much better because I've made choices and I've designed my life in such a way that bring me fulfillment. And so in that fulfillment, even though I have the occasional hiccup, and I am always introspective, and I look back and I say, okay, this hiccup that I have, where am I responsible? And unfortunately, sometimes when I have like a temporary upheaval. Sometimes it's just shining light on not only what areas of my life need to be healed, but what or who I need to let go of in order to achieve my next level of ascension within my own life. And it's a matter of what is going to serve me. And I have personally decided that in the future, going forward, whether it's my friendships, romantic relationships, partnerships in business, whatever it may be, that everything needs to be extraordinary, because I know I'm worthy and deserving of having the best possible life experience, in every aspect of my life, that there's no reason that it shouldn't be magical. And I will tell you that, being grounded, present, and connected, and making my self-care a priority, and really when these things happen, it just deepens my introspection. It deepens my relationship with God. It deepens, my depth in spirituality and everything. And coming from that place, my life just keeps getting better, and every time that I surrender situations, then it always ends up exceeding my expectations when I let go. Because there was a time in my life where I was holding everything so tightly and trying to control everything, just because I was so afraid of failure. I was so afraid of things just falling apart, that I will tell you, if you're walking around like this, trying to keep control of everything, then nothing can go like this, right? If you're holding on to money, if you're holding on to a person, you're suffocating it, you're stifling it. And although something may not be able to get out, you're also not allowing things to come in, right? And that's also not having faith, and that's not walking with God. Because if you're holding on like this, going, I got it, I'm gonna take care of it, I'm gonna control it, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. Your little shoulders were not designed to carry that heavy of a burden. So you've got to learn how to open up, let go, release. And honestly, a lot of women, they just don't know where to start or know how, and so that's where it's just so incredibly important to have coaching and guidance. So this fall in October, I do have my first retreat coming up at an amazingly magical property. I'm so excited about this, where I'm going to have 3 days with women to teach them sacred self-care. And this is going to be the first step in the journey, with a lot of bigger, deeper, more magical experiences to come in the future, where I can just give women the shortcut and teach them how to really dive into deep self-care, and how it can have a ripple effect throughout their lives and change everything, change the dynamics, and help them break free of the shackles of chaos and unnecessary stress that is going to be detrimental to their health and to their wellness and to their relationships. So I just invite you, if anything that I say resonates with you, or if you know another woman that you see really just stressed out, overwhelmed, that it may be affecting her health or her relationships, pass my information along. I'd love to connect and really nurture them and say hello. And, I would really love, I'm only having space for 4 women at my upcoming retreat, and I really just want to nurture them. I'm keeping it very small and intimate, so I can just really pour knowledge into them and give them some one-on-one focused attention to just give them the shortcut. Because once they unplug, when you go back, you will be different, and you will know how to do things differently, and you're going to be happier, and everybody else is going to be happier with you, because finally, you're not going to be a scattered mess, or emotional, or reactive, or cranky, or just so many things. We get so disconnected from our true selves, getting caught up in the rat race and living in the matrix of all the demands and the image and the deadlines and all of those things in corporeality that tend to be an illusion. A lot of this pressure that we actually put on ourselves, not realizing that if we can get grounded within, then everything else around us is going to reflect where we're at internally. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So if you feel like you're living in a storm or a tornado, let's pluck you out of that, and let's get you grounded, so that way we can stop make a stop to the storm. So anyways, I hope what I share with you is beneficial, but definitely reach out to me if you want to come spend a few days with me in Orlando, just really doing a deep dive into sacred self-care. It really is going to be a magical experience. I have the most amazing property that I've hand selected, where you're going to, actually, you'll feel like you're in another country. I mean, this place is amazing. But it's not just a matter of that, but just everything that I have planned to pour into you that I took years to learn and develop, where I can give you the shortcut in just a few short days so you can go back and you can create a ripple effect of change within your own life. So anyways, pass this along. If you catch the replay, put hashtag replay. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, John. It's so good to see you. Hey, Melissa. And just, keep tuning in. I appreciate you guys being here. And if you guys ever have any questions or would like to chat further, certainly reach out to me. I love you guys, and I hope you have a great weekend. Bye-bye.